Welcome everybody, this is Brothermutant here. Today we're going to show you another build from the Eldritch Scion Bloodline builds, and this will be the Infernal build. Now this character has a lot going for them when it comes to things like getting a few enchantment spells for free as they literally level up, which is something that's normally hidden behind a wall of level 19 access. We get no enchanting spells otherwise. So that's something that's relatively rare. We get 3 enchantments, no less. We also get, let's show you here, we get a couple of beam spells for free. So we get Scorching Ray, which of course is nice. As you know, Hellfire Ray, of course, is even better. And again, with these 3 different enchantments, it seemed that we had a general trend here. We have the ability to literally be an enchanter, so to speak. Maybe not amazingly so, but at the very least, these spells will help. Hold Person, Crushing Despair, and Mind Fog, which is extremely potent. And I thought to myself, well, let's make ourselves our beam character. So this is my enchanting beamer. She literally has a high dex score so that she can hit with all those weapon finesse abilities as well as ray spells, so beams that she's going to shoot out from her hands to target other bad guys. Problem with this is normally when you're fighting with a Eldritch Scion or any character that has ray attacks like this, in melee combat that provokes attack of opportunity. It still does for us as well. One of the reasons why you'll see that the Magus class gets stuff like the ability to have spell combat, greater spell combat type feats, because they are going to have to do a concentration check if they get smacked in the face while trying to cast their spells. So, since this is an attack spell, and one we don't want to miss with, I thought, well, high dex makes sense for this build anyway, and then I can get some feats that literally allow me to avoid attacks of opportunity. For example, Point Blank Master for rays only. And this allows her to literally be a beaming attacking son of a bitch, while still investing a couple of feats, in the enchanting spell focus line. So spell focus enchantment and then greater spell focus enchantment later on, so that she can take advantage of these feats that she doesn't really have the best charisma for. So she's still going to be reasonably tanky. She will of course employ all her armor from light all the way to medium and then heavy eventually. So she's not going to be amazing when it comes to things like touch attack. So this is not going to be a character you're going to be able to level 1 to 20 soloing as best you can. Sometimes, sure. Not every time, because there's no way you're going to beat those guys that have touch attacks to any great effect. You're going to need a team. But that's okay. And you can keep the team lean and therefore get to level 20 by the end of the game. That I don't think is going to be a problem. Because of all the stuff that we had going for us, it made sense, especially being that we had the Infernal Bloodline, that we picked a Tiefling. So we specifically picked the Tiefling Hellspawn for a couple reasons. One, you'll notice that while the stat bonuses for Wisdom and Constitution aren't particularly of any real interest to us, we'll take them, they're free. You'll notice that we also get a bonus to Persuasion, which is okay. We get a penalty to Charisma normally. We don't have that problem because of the Infernal Bloodline. If you read down at the bottom there, we literally can avoid it. So we get a +2 to 2 stats and a +0 to Charisma because of this, which is amazing for us. So while I don't, again, particularly care about the Constitution or Wisdom bumps, I'll take a +2 to 2 stats any day of the week, and no penalties across the board, yes please. We also, because we're Tiefling, we have some resistances given to us. We have cold, electric, and fire resistance. Now, of course, this build, if you hadn't gone Tiefling, just to give you an alternative here, like a human, you wouldn't get this, but we do get a resistance here at level 3 for fire, and a little bonus to saves against poison as well. That doubles in strength at level 9, so while we don't benefit from this except for the poison bump resistance-wise, we will benefit from both of them over here at level 9, because it literally will be now 10 resistance to fire and a +4 fortitude for saves against poison, which we will use to our advantage. Because of that, though, we also had something else that you get for being a Hellspawn. Every Tiefling, depending on which background you basically pick, in this case Hellspawn, you usually get a spell-like effect, something you can do once a day. And it just so happens that the spell-like effect that they give us is Scorching Ray. So literally, she gets a free beam right out the gate at level 1. Now again, it's a touch attack. She's not going to be shooting it at amazing damage or anything like that. But it's there and it is free. It will level up with her, of course. So even though it's only once a day, she'll be able to cast this particular spell-like effect. Eventually, it'll get to the point where she's actually casting off 3 beams at a time for some serious damage. So I figured, well, what the hey, that made sense then to continue with the theme of spell attacks that were ranged touch attacks. So what we have here is a finished character. I want to show you, of course, the feats as we pick them as we level up. show you some ways that you can kind of shuffle them around a little bit, which ones are kind of like set in stone, so to speak. And then we'll talk about not only the free spells that we get, but we'll also talk about the spells that I picked as I leveled the character up. So of course, because we're level 1, we only get one feat at the very beginning, level 1. We're not human, and therefore we're stuck to just the one. Since you are going to be a fighter type, and because you had a decent dex to start with, which we'll talk about that here in a sec, I went with weapon finesse. Now on that, again, to talk about the stats, we started with a 10 strength, a dex of 16. Con was bumped to 12 thanks to the background, the racial background for being a devil spawn. Intelligence, I bumped it to 12 because it made the most sense for me, and I figured we're not getting a whole lot of skill points, and while most people are like, well, you don't need to be smart, you are the main focus of the team as this is your main character, so I kind of err on the side of caution and give myself at least a little bit when it comes to extra skills. If I was human, I wouldn't necessarily have worried about it so much, but in this case, since we don't get that human bonus of literally an extra skill point at every level, I figured, what the hey, this will be a good way to get us just a tiny bit more. It's not a bunch. It's not at every level we'll get 3. We'll get literally 3, then 2, and 3, then 2, and it's going to jug around quite a bit. But it's there. The wisdom, again, free, 2 points put into it, which we don't particularly care about, but again, that little bonus here gives us a little bonus to will saves. Same with the constitution with some extra hit points and a bonus to fortitude saves. So I'm not unhappy with it. We started out with a charisma of 17. The very first point at level 4 went into charisma to level it at 18, and from there I didn't put any more in there. So this is not the best DC based build ever. So we're really not relying on these enchantments, so to speak. But I did invest in it. So again, we do have spell focus and greater spell focus for enchantment, as you'll see. From here, you'll notice a couple things. A couple times we're going to get our Magus feats in line with some of these regular feats that we get as we level up at every odd level here. So the Magus feats show up here at level 5 and 11 and 17. Now the weird thing is I actually kind of paired these up in a way that makes sense to me. Doesn't mean you have to go this way. And again, I'll tell you about how you can shuffle stuff around. For instance, at level 3 we pick dodge. It's just not by any stretch of the imagination mandatory. I decided that we would like some extra armor early on because our dex was only 16. We're wearing light armor only at this point. So if you're going to be in the front or even close to the front, I figured you'd probably want a little extra protection, a little oomph for your walk away. So here you go, dodge. Now this can be skipped altogether. Other ones may shift up in front or whatever, replaced with something different. That's perfectly fine, but I figured it's always useful to have dodge, so why not? From here you notice at 5 we get not only our feet, but we also get our Magus feet. And I paired up these two because again it makes sense. So I have point blank shot and precise shot. And while I don't believe precise shot is necessary for our weapon mastery, which is we're going to get for our point blank mastery over here, which allows us to shoot ray attacks at point blank range without having attacks of opportunity against us, which is still a thing. This makes us immune to that now, which is going to be amazing at level 11. So it pairs up with weapon specialization perfectly, because that's the soonest we can get it. So we get those two at the same time. Now again, like I said, I don't think we need precise shot with that. I believe we need point blank shot to get it though. I can't remember off the top of my brain, and even if you didn't, you still want both, and let me tell you why. Point blank shot, that's a bonus for damage and a bonus to your swing, so again, a win and a win. From there, this also works of course with any kind of ranged attack we're talking about, whether it's our ray spells, or if you're using a crossbow or bow and arrow, so that's still a thing. We're going to be attacking in melee combat, eventually, as we are going to be the tank, or the second tank at least, with our heavy armor on. So precise shot is still necessary because that penalty still applies for ray spells because it's still a ranged attack cast into melee range. So we definitely wanted precise shot. So I figured why not pair them up at the same time, and that's why you see them at 5. At 7, you see we finally get our first enchantment spell here, and we actually have access to it at level 7. So I decided let's get spell focused enchantment, a little +1 DC to make that whole person more likely to stick. Now remember, by now we already have our 18 charisma, so it's as high as it's ever going to get. Not counting buffs and of course gear and fun stuff like that. So again, a little bit of juice here. I'm trying to make that whole person stick. From there, you see that we get at 9 weapon focus ray. Now again, these aren't necessarily set in stone. However, weapon focus ray has to be picked to get weapon specialization ray. And I would say you pick it up definitely before 11 because of the fact that, again, if we do it this way, this is the soonest we can get point blank master because both of those open up at the same time. So this could have been picked, for example, instead of dodge, way the hell down here. You don't have to. It could have been point blank shot, and again, rearranged in any way you choose, basically. But again, before 11, you have to get weapon focus ready to make this build work properly. So this one gives us a +1 to our swing with ray spells. Again, another bonus. And if we're already within melee range, damn near, you're pretty much going to be guaranteeing a +2 to your swing, which is extremely nice, and a little +1 bonus to your damage as well. Now we get it to 11, and because of our fighter training here, that allows us to get fake fighter feat level, so to speak, weapon specialization is hidden behind the wall of that. So that's why this is as soon as you can pick up this one. Again, not only do you need to be fighter level 4 for this, you also have to have a weapon focus for whatever weapon you're specializing in, which in this case is Ray. The downside is this is currently borked. You don't get the +2 damage like it says, which is a real bummer. So for those of you that think this is a decent build and kind of pissed about this, feel free to complain to the devs and maybe suggest that they fix this, because this is clearly a glitch. You already can get a +1 damage thanks to point blank shot, so we know that that's possible to do. So they just never coded it in there for whatever reason, and I don't know why. And it's only +2 damage, so it's not game breaking, but it's still one of those where I invested in it, damn it, I should get it. But the reason to get this is simply because it really does open up point blank master for Ray. And again, you have to pick Ray. The option will be there, and it'll give you, like, it's going to open up several options. No, it won't give you any other option than the ones that you have literally weapon specialization in, and it has to be a ranged weapon. In this case, Ray. It could have been dart, it could have been javelin, it could have been bow or crossbow or whatever. But the point is, since we have weapon specialization Ray here, it will open up here for point blank master. And once you pick this one, by the way, this one shows up as a check mark, as a please pick us. So that's kind of good news, so you don't have to go searching for it. So that's nice. And again, hidden behind that wall of fighter level 4 minimum, which is why this one is available and then this one is available. From there, you're going to get all your enchantments in a nice tight net here. So you see hold person here at 7. Then at 9, we should get Crushing Despair, but sadly we can't cast it till level 10. So at 10, you'll get this one. And then again, this one here at 11, Mind Fog, we will not be able to cast those until level 13. But because of that, then I'm like, well, okay, so now that's our 3rd enchantment. Let's get Greater Spell Focus enchantment. And again, I'm not married to it, doesn't have to be here. But again, this is the soonest you can get these two, so they're kind of stuck here at 11 in my opinion. This one has to be at least level 9 or sooner. And then again, I think you have to have at least point blank shot. And again, you're definitely going to want to get precise shot then as well. So again, we don't have much in the way of fudge room. Dodge is really the only one that can kind of shift around with, say, spell focus. But again, I grabbed them at places that they made sense. The very first spell that shows up, and then when the very last spell that you have that is an enchantment shows up. So again, a buff and a buff. From there, Piranha Strike, and again, you may want this sooner. Again, another reason to shift dodge around. Piranha Strike for some serious damage, kind of like your power attack, but again, for weapon finessable things, and that's what we're basically built around. Notice we got combat reflexes really late in the game as well. And then at the same time, we got improved critical. Now I picked rapier, you could pick whatever weapon you fancy. We don't have to have weapon focus in this, so that's nice. I could have even picked improved critical for ray spells, which is the thing. Your ray spells are actual attacks, and therefore they have a chance to crit. They'll crit on a natural 20. Sadly, that's kind of suck. So if you wanted it to be a 19 and 20, this is the only way that I know of that you can buff it. I'm not going to do that. I'd rather crit with the weapon that you're supposed to have, and you are supposed to be a meleeer. This is more for gimmicks than anything else. But you can if you so choose. And again, you don't have to pick rapier. You can do kukri, you can do whatever you have any kind of skill in. But this is the one that I think makes the most sense for our build. From there, notice that for the last pick that we have, I grabbed Arcane Strike, and again, much later than I would normally pick it, but again, it's a very tight build for what we need here, being that we're a tiefling and we're kind of screwed here in the early stages of it. Otherwise, I'd probably pick it around here at the first level if at all possible. But that's free damage, and I'm not going to turn it down. And at this level, you're actually going to get a +4. By the time you finally get to 20, it'll be a +5 damage, so long as you leave it on. So a really tight build, but pretty strong, I think, for damage output. Really decent for armor. Yes, you're going to have to rely on your team, because with heavy armor on, you're not dodging anything when it comes to touch attacks, so that's going to be a bummer. But you can solo with this build, I think, relatively safely many times early on. And that's going to allow you to juice your character up just enough that you're slightly ahead of the team. So when they're 7, you're 8 or 9. And that's cool, because really it kind of not just shines because you're out leveling your teammates, but you're out leveling the content you're fighting. And your teammates will eventually catch up to you, so that's not of real concern either. So I do like the fact that we can solo with this one. Now, some other things to point out before we start talking about spells are these Magus feats that we normally pick up. Okay, so you'll notice that we ticked our extended magic again. This is an obvious staple for me. I don't have to pick this one. There's other options, but remember, your charisma is not very high, so arcane accuracy didn't make a whole lot of sense. There's a couple others in there, like reach was a good potential here. Because we're using ray spells, just because I can use them at point blank range thanks to this feats here and here, doesn't mean I have to. And why not beam them in the face with some of these scorching rays and hellfire rays at full distance? So this could be a really nice one to have for reach magic. Now the downside is I didn't pick that, and it's because I've been testing in the very close quarter combats that is the Tenebrous Depths, and these guys see you almost as soon as you open the goddamn door. So there's really no opportunity for me to set up the reach and then cast the spell and then wade into battle. That doesn't mean it's not a viable option in the actual game, but because of that, I defaulted then back to extended. So you can pick what you want here is what I'm basically telling you. But I do like this because you are going to buff yourself. You have shield spell. We're going to shrink ourselves down with reduced person, as you'll see. Blur is still a staple. And even if you're not buffing those, you have other ones that you do want to buff, like haste, displacement, greater heroism will make an appearance very late in the game. So again, we'll have very good uses for this, and certainly early on. Something you will notice though is normally when I pick Enduring Blade is the very next pick, because that's as soon as you can get it, and I always poo-poo the idea of passing on it. We didn't pass on it, we just passed on getting it immediately, and the reason for this is actually because of the way we're doing this build. Prescient Attack, for those of you that don't know what this is, we literally use one of our arcane pool points for a 1 round only swift action of basically catching the opponent flat-footed. And while this is normally reserved, in my opinion, for things like when I really need to hit that reflex dex dodging son of a bitch like a rogue or some such, or if I really have the ability to do some sneak attack damage, which we'll get to that later, this is really a way to set up that sneak attack damage guaranteed. Now, we don't have either of those things really going for us, or we don't particularly care about rogues per se at this point. The reason I grabbed this as soon as possible is because it dawned on me that with us being a beamer, a ray spell casting son of a bitch, remember those are touch attacks, which means we are already ignoring their armor, their shield, and any bonuses to their armor or shield that applies. So again, I would have normally a 19 armor, but if you shoot me with a ray spell, suddenly my armor drops down to 16. And probably worse than that, because I am getting my full dex bonus right now, I probably won't be getting that if I'm wearing heavy plate armor. You see the point? So the point is literally, I want to make sure that the touch attack is really screwed. How do I do that? Well, again, those dodging son of a bitches, the ones that have huge dex pools, a way to make sure that they get hit with my beams are I literally pre-buff up with something like Prescient Attack once, and then beam them with the ray spell where they literally have no armor whatsoever. Remember, their armor and their shield's gone thanks to the fact that it's a touch attack, and now their dex bonus and dodge bonus is basically gone as well. And I just poop right in the face. Now there's a couple things that they can do to protect themselves, but not much. So that's really nice to me. And we still manage to get Enduring Blade, it's just the next pick. But I really think that this will be something you'll benefit from. Again, the order is not particularly important, and you're kind of wasting this then. But I think that literally, by the time you start getting ray spells like Scorching Ray under your belt, and you want to hit them, your dex is still only going to be a 16 at this level. You're really not going to hit as often as you think. So having the ability to just click a button and say, nope, sorry, I want to almost guarantee that I'm going to smack you in the face. And this is a good way to do it. Then from there, of course, you see we grabbed our Enduring Blade still. And of course, then we went with Ghost Blade, Bane Blade, which are staples. You don't have to, again, and I'm not married to these things, but I do like Bane Blade, as you know, it's an amazing buff. It will not, any of these, by the way, do not work for your ray spells. You still are buffing your weapon, whatever that is. So if you're unarmed, it is literally your unarmed strikes. If it's your rapier in your hand, it's your rapier you're buffing. So the same is still applicable here. But I do like Ghost Blade for its utility. The Brilliant Energy is basically another way to basically turn your rapier attacks, or well, I should say melee attacks, into touch attacks for a short period of time. Doesn't work on every opponent, but it's pretty damn nice. And then of course Bane Blade is just some extra nice force damage, a really nice buff. You will love it. You'll notice at the end here, I went a little crazy and grabbed Maximize Magic. Now again, that is worth mentioning because there's a choice of Empower, Maximize, Quicken is even in there. Again, Reach, which we didn't pick. Why did I pick Maximize? And when most people will tell you, Empowered is technically speaking your go-to for meta magic compared to Maximize meta magic. And while I agree with that, let me explain why I went Maximize then here. First, This is not meta magic we're talking about. Meta magic is a feat, okay? And that is literally us picking spells and upgrading the spells to certain levels to get this benefit. A maximized spell, an empowered spell, an extended spell. This is a clickable ability. So I literally click this, and then the next spell that I cast, whatever it is, level 1 through 6, baby, it's now maximized. That can be a fireball spell, that could be my vampiric touch, that can be Hellfire Ray, it could be Disintegrate, which we will pick up. A lot of really good ways then to use this. Now, a maximized meta magic compared to empowered meta magic, which is not what we're doing here, but those two, in that instance, I would pick empowered meta magic, and here's why. Maximize literally just gives you whatever the variables are at maximum. Again, to go to our original argument of, say, Vampiric Touch, it does at level 20, 10d6 of damage. Now, if you maximize that, that turns into 60 points of damage guaranteed. Now, not counting resistances and blah, blah, blah. You have to hit them, of course, too. But if it hits, this is how much it'll do, 60. If it crits, crits are for double. So 60 turns into 120. That sounds pretty awesome. And that is also hit points that you get to your character for an hour. So again, pretty damn sweet. Empowered, on the other hand, does this. It takes the variable, the 10d6, rolls it, and then multiplies that number that you come up with by 1.5. So it's a 50% boost to whatever the variable actually was rolled. Now the variable can still roll that 60. It's not likely, but it has happened. So 60 could be technically 90 is your best case scenario for empowered. And again, if it critted on that 90 by pure dumb luck, it could be 180 hit points. And again, while that looks amazing, remember the minimum there is also 10. And then if it was empowered, that 10 would be turned into 15, which is far shy away from 60 and 120. But the point is still the same. On average, empowered is your go-to meta magic. Another reason I think people say that is because of this. Remember when we talk about spell levels? For these ones, it's clickable. It doesn't matter what level my spell is. I just click this, then I click my spell, and that spell is maximized, of course, if it can be maximized. Same with the empowered version. For the feats now, you have to put it in your spell book, and the meta magic shifts the level of the spell up to a higher casting. Not a higher DC check, that's important, just a higher casting. So for instance, our Vampiric Touch, for instance, let's say it's the level 3 spell. If I were to extend it, because the duration is an hour, you know, the amount of hit points you get, if I extended that, that would literally be a level 1 increase. So a level 3 spell is now, I had cast it as a level 4 spell for my level 4 spell slots. It's still treated as a level 3 spell, it's just my level 4 slots are being used. With Empower, it goes up 2 levels, so a level 3 spell like Vampiric Touch would be cast literally from a level 5 spell slot. It's still a level 3 spell, but to be empowered, it's 2 higher. And maximize is 3 higher. And again, I think that's another reason for the argument that empowered's better. A, you can do more spells that are empowered, because remember, we are capped off at 6. 6 is as high as we can go. That means empowered spells at level 4 can be empowered, and we can cast them as level 6. Level 5 spells we can't, because it would be a level 7 spell now. We don't have access to 7, 8, or 9. And then maximize, then literally for meta magic, you'd be stuck maximizing level 1, 2, or 3 spells, because 4, 5, and 6 you can cast. You can't cast higher than that, so a level 4 spell cannot be maximized. We can maximize them with these though. And again, that's why I went back to using this one over the empowered version. So it's slightly different argument here, and I still think I'm right. Doesn't mean I am right. And again, empowered still has a case here for being more damage potentially. But I just like the idea of, nope, sorry, I'm going to hit you with any spell I have at level 1 through 6, and it's going to hit for the full force. I don't have to even think about it. Now, maybe you roll for half damage or whatever, but the point's still the same. I know what the number's going to be. And for some of the spells you're going to get, Hellfire Ray being a fine example, a maximized version of something that does 90 points of damage 3 times, pat, 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 that's a pretty goddamn strong spell. And you could see hitting one guy in the face for, you know, was that basically 270 points of fire damage? That's pretty good. So again, you can see the benefit here. Now the downside of this is I don't think we can do maximize, prescient attack, and then Hellfire Ray. I haven't tested it, but if you do test it, and before I have a chance to, feel free to comment down below, let us know if it does work. I think it will, but this thing has a time delay on it. You have to activate it. It's not a toggle. You have to activate it, and then you have to activate this, and then the next attack for that one combat round. So if I were to do this in order, instead of doing prescient attack, then maximize magic, and then cast a spell, I would actually do maximize magic, then prescient attack, then a spell. Because this is on a timer. This may be as well. So this, like I said, it may not work either way you do it. But try it both ways and tell me if it actually does fire off like I'm hoping. And if it really gets maximized and then you get the prescient attack where it's ignoring their armor, or their dex bonus, excuse me, then this is going to be a 1-2 hit combo from hell. Pardon the pun. This one, Scorching Ray will still be decent. You'll get other ones too as we level up, as you see. So we get a lot of ray attacks, beam spells, whatever you want to call them, that are going to be amazing. Now, having said all that, this covers everything I wanted to cover here. Again, just to reiterate some of the stuff that you get here for being an Infernal. Notice I never seem to use the Corrupting Touch. That's not to say it's crap. I just can't seem to get into it, and it's just one of those I just commonly forget that it's there. It does shaken, and that's a good penalty to the bad guy that you touch. But it's still one of those where I'm kind of like, meh. This one, by the way, complete ass. It doesn't work. There is no charm spells in this game. Doesn't matter that we're a sorcerer or an Eldritch Scion. There are none. They took them out. So this is complete waste. It says +2. There is no +2. Just ignore this. This is garbage. Also, we do get the bonus for Knowledge World, but I think we may have had that already. So it may not be necessary. But the point's still the same. A sorcerer may not have had access to it, and a sorcerer will. So remember, these were all stolen from the sorcerer's pool, so to speak. Notice some other things. Protection from good is probably going to be garbage for you. There's not a lot of good guys fighting you in this game, even if you are evil. So it's kind of a waste. So you really, if they would have given us protection from alignment, that'd been something, because then we could choose. But they didn't do that. They gave us protection from good, period, which is kind of whatever. Maybe it'll help. I don't know. Maybe you fight chaotic good guys at some point in the game. I do like the resistances, and again, even if you're not a tiefling, that fire resistance will upgrade to 10 at level 9, so that's a thing. But if you're not a tiefling, you know, the fire resistance built into you for like a human, again, that's pretty cool. I do like the free beam attacks, as you already know, and I do like hold person, not hold monster. That's different. Hold person, and I do like crushing despair. It's extremely useful, not teammate friendly, so be careful with this one. And mind fog, which is also not teammate friendly. Don't step into this cloud. It is not poison. You are not immune to this shit. It will hurt you and hurt you in a bad, bad way. And all it does is literally debuff your wisdom and it debuffs your will saves. But it's a lot. And this is one that, like, you can slap this down and then think about any other spell. It doesn't even have to be enchantment spells. Any other will save spells, a fine example being slow, is more likely to land in that area of effect, right? So slap that mind fog down on somebody that you think maybe will save and out of it, and then slap a slow spell in the area of effect. That's a nice 1-2 combo there. Notice we also get wings for free, so again in melee we'll get a +3 to our dodge. That'll be extremely useful. Again, it won't push us up into territories where we're like a monk or anything, but if you wanted to go monk, you literally should go 19 on this and one level of scale fist monk at the very beginning anyway. But you didn't want to do that. You wanted to go all the way to Eldritch Scion 20 for reasons. So that's fine. And remember, we don't get Firebrand, we don't get Power Word Stun, and we don't get Polar Midnight, which is a damn shame. Of course, we do get Power of the Pit, so eventually at 20, which is way down the line, immunity to fire and poison, and then we get some acid resistance and some cold resistance, which we will appreciate. Now the cold we already had at 5 to begin with for being a tiefling, but now it's to 10. Our electric stays 5, and now we have acid. So we literally have 4 elements that we are protected from at DR 5 or 10 or immune to. The only one that we're really sensitive to then would be Sonic, and that's always the same. We do have, of course, our true Magus, so if we really need to juice up our DC checks for whatever reason, we just turn the toggle on to something different. If we need to make sure spell penetration works, because spell resistance is still a thing for some of these spells, even the ray spells, we just turn that one on. That's a +2 to spell pen. I normally, though, will say I leave it on this build on the +2 attack bonus, because let's face it, more likely to hit is more likely to hit, and that's really what we're shooting for here in most cases. Now let's actually talk about our spell book, shall we? Now I'm going to go over these, and again, I'm not married to these ones, and there's no real particular order here, with the exception of, I like me a buff, and I like me to get my melee touch attack in early. You are still a melee touch attack person. Don't kid yourself. You are not an Eldritch Archer. We're just using this ray beam shit for some funsies, basically like laughs more than anything else. But it's going to be potent. But I'm still going to get those single target melee attack spells. So Shocking Grasp, we won't get the Corrosive Touch one, but we will get Frigid Touch and we will get Vampiric Touch. So those 3 are still going to be in the build. Shield, of course, for obvious reasons. That's my very first 2 picks. From there, I did Magic Missile because sometimes there's bad guys where a Magic Missile is almost a guaranteed way to kill them. Sometimes you just need to hit somebody, and this is guaranteed hitting in almost every case, with the exception of someone that has shield on them, as well as people that are immune to it. But there are some bad guys in the game that only spell that literally works on them is Magic Missile. Does that mean you can't hit with your weapon? No, you can totally hit them with your weapon. If you can hit them with your weapon, and that's the problem. So I still kind of like Magic Missile, but if you're not going to be the Magic Missile caster on the team, maybe you have someone else, like Octavius, coming with you and she's got good spells. She can hit with Magic Missile pretty good. You don't necessarily need this then. I would probably dip out of this one and take the one ray spell that I didn't get. Well, one of two. And it's called Snowball. It's a good spell. It's not a great spell, but it's good. And I didn't pick it because, again, I needed to pick Ray of Enfeeblement instead. And these other ones as well. Notice you go to get your protection from good for free. And that's at level 3 that shows up. Expeditious Retreat I pick, and again, I probably picked this sooner than later. And the reason for this is, if you are going to solo at all with this build, which you can do, you definitely want to be a little more zippy, as we've seen before. It's real sluggy when you have to literally walk everywhere, and you're just like, come on, just get to the other side of the goddamn map. Well, Expeditious Retreat solves that problem. And there's still good potential here for kiting. Remember, you have decks who have skills with bows and crossbows. There's no reason in the world you can't have a decent crossbow early on and go solo on your own with armored up character and only really Expeditious Retreat on and literally kite long enough to literally get a level or two and out level the content you're fighting. I've done it before. I can even tell you where it's at. It's in chapter 1, so it's not really spoilers. In chapter 1, there's going to be some caves that you fight in where it's long drawn out and there's lots of bad guys and lots of spiders. And I have successfully kited those guys using Expeditious Retreat, Shield spell, and that's the only 2 spells I had on me at the time, and a crossbow that was like a masterwork crossbow, and was able to shoot them, run away, shoot them, run away, shoot them, run away, and never get attacked until I have to turn around at the end of the corridor and then zip past them super fast. Maybe they get an attack opportunity as I run past them, maybe not, but I have the potential to get hit there. And then I just keep stopping, shooting, run away. Stop, shoot, run away. Stop. You get really good at it, and before too long, you'll be like a level or 2 above those bastards, to the point where you'll not only have better spells, you'll have better fighting skills and everything else besides. And it's really potent to do this early on. Not so much late game. Still helpful late game, though, to be zippy, I think. We grabbed of course, Ray spell called Ray of Enfeeblement. This is a touch attack. Doesn't do damage, but it does an effect guaranteed. It will literally lower their strength. Doesn't matter if they make the save or not, and it's a fortitude save, they will take strength damage. At the highest level, the worst possible case scenario for you, when you finally max out its abilities, it's a 6 a minimum and an 11 a maximum, and then you cut that number in half. So 6 becomes 3. So the minimum you can debuff them would be 3 strength. Now, of course, they could be immune to ability drain. That would completely negate the spell. They could have spell resistance, as you see, or, God forbid, you could miss with the touch attack, so that's a thing. But more likely than not, if you're fighting someone that you're trying to lower their strength, they're a fighter type, which means they're relying on armor, not dex, more likely than not. So it's easier for you to hit them. They may have spell resistance, they may not. There's nothing we can really do about that. But even if they make that fortitude save, and they probably will, because again, it's going to be a fighter or a barbarian, someone with a high fortitude save, you're still nerfing them by a minimum of 3 for strength, and that is still a boon to you. Now you see, of course, I've taken reduced person. This is a dex-based build, so having yourself be a teeny tiny little person comes in handy. More dex based on size, that stacks with any dex-based gear you have, so that's the thing. It's harder for them to hit you, so you get a armor class bonus not only because of the dex, but you also get an armor class bonus because of you're teeny tiny, and then you get a bonus to your attack rolls because you're teeny tiny, presumably your target's bigger. Also, because we're a weapon finesser and a raid beam caster, so basically everything we attack with is dex based, because of our size and that bonus to dexterity, we have another increase to our attack bonus. So we get a +2 to our armor and a +2 to our attack bonus, all from activating this spell. Yes, you're small, yes, your strength sucks, but you're not a strength-based character. You are a raid spellcaster, and then, of course, relying on the fact that your weapon's going to be magic, and it doesn't matter that you're doing like a -1 to damage per round. That's okay, and I still maintain that that's a viable option for this build. Notice, level 2, Frigid Touch and Blur. Of course, I could have got Mirror Image on the second spell. Of these two, I honestly think Blur is your better call here. It's just a judgment call. Mirror image will last just as long, except for, of course, if they hit the images, once the images are all gone, which could be the first combat round for all I know, then it's completely done and the spell's over. Whereas blur will last literally for the full duration, unless, of course, it's been stripped off you for whatever reason. So a 20% chance to just straight up miss me is always there. So I do like blur over mirror image, personally speaking. If I had to pick between the two, this would be the one I'd pick. But since I will get both of them, again, it's not so much of a concern. But again, I still think blur is probably best early on, and then mirror image to kind of fortify you a little bit more. And notice, of course, you get your Scorching Ray for free, and you will have this available to you, I want to say, as soon as this spell class opens up. No, you'll get it at level 5, I believe. So this opens up at level 4. So these guys will show up first, and then the next time you get to pick a spell, this one will be there. And again, I still would rather have Frigid Touch over something like Acid Arrow early on. You will use this more. It's nice to have this there, and it's because of the fact that we get this for free, I was able to get Acid Arrow, in my opinion, because many times I'll just skip it. But now I can grab it, and it's a ray spell, and we will benefit from that ray spell. Notice, because you're going to be wearing armor, I did pick Effortless Armor. I picked it very late, and I picked it very late because, again, the first penalties that you may suffer from having light armor is going to be minimal at best. Medium armor, it starts to get annoying, and then heavy armor, if you're wearing like full plate or some banded mail, it's starting to suck. And that's only really if you're relying on things like your athletics check, your trickery, your stealth, which you're not going to use, or your mobility, which you might invest in. It's up to you. But if you don't think that's going to be a thing, or you don't care that that's a thing, and your team's going to cover all those athletics checks and trickery checks, then don't pick it. Pick something else. Like Web, you'll notice is missing from this list. I had to make a judgment call between Glitter Dust and Web, and the only reason Glitter Dust went out was 2 reasons. 1, we don't have blind sight as we level up. I didn't pick it as a feat. 2, so that covers kind of these guys being invisible. 2, it is a will save versus Web, which is not. And the reason that that's important, while it's not an enchantment, and we don't get a bonus for that, remember that we get that Mind Fog spell. That's a -10 to will saves, if they're affected by it, of course. And that would include then any spell that you cast after that's a will save, like this one. So I could do Mind Fog, then Glitter Dust, and possibly blind a big group of dudes. That's the reason for this. Now remember, this is not team friendly. This is not self-friendly. Don't cast this shit at your feet. Cast it right in front of your toes for the guys that are basically you're probably tanking. And at the very least, you'll coat them with the dust, making them not be invisible. So that's helpful, and that's guaranteed. And then the other is that do they make the save or not? That's whether they're blinded or not. And again, if they're not blinded, oh well, but if they are blinded, yay us. So a good piece of information there. Level 3, now first, not only do you see these, but we also get free spells that we pick up at level 19, and I'll talk about them at the end. But Haste and Vampire Touch made pretty good sense. You could have just as easily went Displacement and Vampire Touch. But again, your touch attack for obvious reasons, and I do like the free hit points. So a really nice spell. But Haste is amazing, and again, teammate friendly, and since you're still going to be on a team, I figured versus Displacement, I'd rather have this to buff everybody, and extra attack around, baby. Who doesn't love that shit? Plus, everyone's a little more zippy. So cool. You get Hold Person for free, of course. Then you get Displacement, as you see here. Notice that we get Stinking Cloud. I did this one, and of course, Cloud Kill, as you'll see in a minute. For that obvious reasons that A, both are useful, and C, you literally have that +2 and then eventually a +4 Fortitude bump against poison saves. So really, by the time we pick this up, we have that +4 to Fortitude. That doesn't mean it can't affect us, so be careful with that shit. Eventually, we'll become immune to it. Obviously, delayed poison is your bread and butter. Use that stuff if you can. But at the very least, if you make the mistake of walking into it, you at least have an increase to your Fortitude check. So that's the reasoning behind that. Lightning Bolt, because I'm getting tired of picking Fireball all the time, and as you'll see at level 4, we'll get Controlled Fireball to be teammate friendly. So I figured let's do a little bit of different damage type, so we did Electric this time around. Slow, late, sure, but also again, it is a will save, so again, benefits from that Mind Fog that we're talking about that could penalize their will saves, so that's helpful. And then for a free pick at level 6, we got 6 spells, or level 19, excuse me, we get 6 spells. One of which was the very first one here is Battering Blast. It is a ray spell, multiple rays, matter of fact. At level 19 you'll get 3, and at level 20 you'll get 4. It does 5d6 damage per attack. So literally if they all hit, you can do up to 30 points of damage times 4. That's 120 for a maximized Battering Blast. and that's guaranteed damage, you know, assuming they hit, of course, and spell resistance is applicable here too. But notice there's a save. The save is not to reduce damage. The save is to prevent them from being bull rushed or knocked on their ass or whatever the hell it is. So even if they make the save, I could care less. They're still taking 120 points of maximized damage here, as long as I hit them. Pop, pop, pop. That's a really nice combo, then, I think. Single target, kind of close range, but again, remember we have that benefit of being able to fight at point blank range with our ray spells. This includes this, so that's cool. Level 4, you know I love my Dimension Door Dragon's Breath combo for the first 2 picks. You know, we'll very rarely find that I don't pick both of those, unless of course obviously one of them is for free. But these are really good because A, Dragon's Breath, utility, multi-casting, just whatever element I need of those 4. Obviously we don't get Sonic. If you want Sonic damage, you go for Shout, which we did later. But then we got Fire, we got Acid, we got Cold, and we got Electric all in one spell here, baby. Just decide what you need and use it. Dimension Door for the obvious reasons, because A, there's a lot of this game that you can still cheese, where you can teleport into areas you're not supposed to be able to get into. They've never taken them out, and until they take that shit away, you know I'm going to freaking exploit it. Also, even if they do fix it, there's still times where you can teleport to places where you will get to there eventually. But not right now. But there's a really cool piece of treasure right there. I can see the chest. Well, you guys wait here. I'm going to teleport my ass down there, open that chest, and teleport back up with whatever was in that chest. And then we can continue on our merry. Also, for later in the game anyway, when you have them rushing you and you have another tank with you, someone that can take the beating or dodge well enough that they don't have to take the beating, and you see the wizard or the caster or whatever type in the back row being a general D-bag, you can teleport right to that son of a bitch's feet, and you'll get attacks of opportunity against those bastards for casting spells. Yes, they may cast their spell anyway, but you'll be there to stab them in the face with that rapier. So it's a really useful spell. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And you can teleport yourself as well as team, of course. They have to be close to you to do it, though. We get Crushing Despair for free. Again, not teammate friendly. It's an enchantment. By now we have a +1 DC when we get this one. Eventually we'll get a +2 DC to it, so don't worry about that. But it's going to be helpful. And when it does land, it's a cone. When it does land, a really nice debuff to the bad guys that get hit with this. Because a -2 to attack, and damage, and saves, and ability checks and skill checks, which you could care less about. But basically it's the attack rolls, the damage, and the saves that we're counting on here. And that's really helpful for softening them up for other spells later on. Stone Skin for some nice protection for yourself. Again, make sure you pack some Diamond Dust. You're going to need it. But this is our only good way of soaking up damage for us right now. And that's still a staple, and I do like that spell. And the fact that we can use it on others besides ourselves is also useful. Control Fireball for obvious reasons. You know, you're not really a caster, in my opinion, as Arcane anyway, unless you're zipping some kind of Fireball out somewhere. And a Controlled Fireball counts as well. It's a higher DC check than Fireball, so that's nice. And it's reasonably teammate friendly. It still will do damage to you and your friends. Well, maybe not you, because you're probably resistant at this point, to the point where it probably won't do any damage to you, but they will, and it'll be minor compared to everybody else. So again, useful. Greater Invis, I picked it just because it is helpful. You're not really a stealther. We're not going to do sneak attack damage. You notice that I didn't pick up Sense Vitals at level 2 spellcasting. Which again would be only available at level 19, so it really didn't seem necessary to pick it up. I mean, I could have, but I'm like, you know, I still like the ray spells better anyway. So I went Greater Invis because it will help you set stuff up and literally catch people flat-footed when you start running out of things like prescient attacks. Innervation is a ray spell, so I picked this up as a free pick at level 19. This is one that literally, not only is it a great spell, there is no save. Spell resistance is still a thing, but if you hit them with this and the spell resistance doesn't apply, you can really screw them over badly. For every level you drain, it's a -1 to all their saves and a bunch of other stuff too, but really that's the selling point. -1 to every save that they have. And they stack. So now think about this. I have 6 castings a day, as you can see at level 20 here. I could cast 6 times Innervation, and then I can maximize 3 of them with my own maximized magic ability. That means 4 levels guaranteed every time I hit you. Assuming I hit you. Now let's assume I hit you all 6 times. The first 3 I'm going to drain you of 12 levels. I don't know many bosses in this game that can afford to take 12 levels of damage. Now yes, there's going to be bosses that are immune to negative levels. There's going to be bosses that have high spell resistance, and that's going to be applicable. There's going to be bosses that dodge this, where you literally don't hit them even though it is a touch attack. Fine. But on those ones that aren't, I mean, we're talking troll bastards that are just mean son of a bitches that you just turn into little bitty kittens because they're literally nerfed to the point that even if they survive all this, they're not doing shit to you, and you'll just crush them with your spells. That's why Innervation's here. Plus it looks cool. Shout, of course, to fill in the gap for the last bit of sonic damage that was missing from Dragon's Breath. It's not necessary. Feel free to grab something else, but there really isn't much left in this level to pick, so I'm not unhappy with Shout as a choice. Level 5. You know I like Cloud Kill for some serious cheese moves. From there I went Acidic Spray, and of these 3 spells, literally, I don't mind getting Acidic Spray early, because we literally have talked about this in the past, but Acidic Spray has the chance, if they fail their save, that they will take even more acid damage on the next round following. So they'll do a massive surge of damage, then half that damage on the next round. Again, if they fail their first reflex save. So that's technically crowding out Cone of Cold and Fire Snake for damage. Fire Snake is kind of on top on the other hand, though, because again, it's teammate friendly. It will not hit anyone on your party at all. So you can cast it in mass groups of bad guys. That's fine. But we already have fire damage in spades, so it's kind of like, well, I grab Cone of Cold before I grab Fire Snake. I'm going to get them all. That's never a thing. But again, in order, this is how I normally pick them. Notice again, you get Mind Fog for free, and that's the one that really screws them not only in wisdom checks, but really screws them on their will saves by -10 if they fail, of course. That's a big ouch. And again, not friendly to you or your team. Be real careful with the placement of that shit. Of course, Elemental Body too, for obvious reasons. We've talked about this so many times, I don't want to repeat it. But again, there's parts of the game where you need to be not alive, and this is a good way of not being alive and therefore not taking damage. Constricting Coils. This is a free pick at level 19. Notice it's an enchantment that does damage. So this is nice in that it's whole monster on crack. So it's really, really, really useful. And we get a +2 to the DC thanks to the fact that we have Spell Focus enchantment and Greater Spell Focus enchantment. If I needed to juice it a little more, I just switch the toggle and give me a +4 instead of a +2. And hope that that's enough to land this move. Of course, you want to have your Charisma through the roof too. That will help with the DC check as well. Level 6. How can I turn these down? You have too many good ray spells here. And now you may say that I went overboard because I have 4 in level 6. And that's probably overkill. Okay, fine. Well, one of them's free. That's Hellfire Ray. So, shut up. But, sorry, I don't mean that. But the point is, I like the other ones for other reasons. Okay, first off, Elemental Assessor you pick at level 19. You have no choice because it's not available to you any other way. So that's kind of a judgment call. I do like it though, and to maximize this could be a really fun spell. I like Disintegrate because a maximized version of that, when they fail to save, of course, that's 240 points of goddamn damage. There's very few boss fights you're going to get into where they can suck up 240 points of damage and just shrug it off. If they're not dead instantly from this, hit them with another Innervation spell, and then hit them again with Disintegrate. They're dropping like a bitty baby. It's a great spell. It's got great range. Now, yes, it sucks when they make the save. There's nothing I can do about that other than to hope that I debuff the shit out of their saving throws. It is a Fortitude save, so we're talking Innervation, Crushing Despair are all good options to make sure that their saves are in the toilet before I maximize and Disintegrate. If that's not my thing, and maybe I just don't like the fact that they're probably going to make the save and it's going to be then only 30 points of damage, here's Umbral Strike. Yes, they can make the same save on this one. Yes, the damage gets turned in half, but half of 120, that, the maximized version here, half of 120 is 60, so it will do twice the damage than of this one if they make the save. So if I'm fairly certain they're going to make that Fortitude save, I would use Umbral Strike first. Again, Hellfire Ray's better, and again, maybe this is all you need, but this is different damage too. So we're talking fire damage, half fire, half unholy, so to speak, where they literally take damage even if they're immune to fire, half of it. If that's not your bread and butter, Umbral Strike is nice because it does cold damage and negative damage. Again, they may be immune to cold, but they'll take the negative damage. And then, this one has an effect besides, because this one literally will make them blind if they fail their save. So again, it has more utility than Hellfire Ray. Hellfire Ray has more damage. Disintegrate has super damage. But again, this one, if all 3 beams hit, does more damage than this one. Because this is 45 d6, this is 40 d6. Again, you have to hit with all 3 beams, and they have to be susceptible, so that's the thing. But I like them for all different reasons, is my point. Notice we got Transformation, because again, duh, why not be able to fight like a fighter? And this is kind of like the last ditch effort. So if this is the last casting of a level 6 spell you have, chances are this is the one you really are casting on yourself, to make you uber and you run in and finish them off melee style. Sirocco, you know, is a favorite. I love this one. Now, sadly, we don't have things like Grease Spell. We don't have Web Spell We don't have Obsidian Flow or Tar Pool or any of the other ones that would literally lock them in a nice tight corridor. That's kind of a bummer. So this kind of loses its utility because of that. But it is an evocation spell that does fire damage, but instead of it being a reflex, it's a fortitude save. And that's kind of the reason that this one's important to me, because it's an AoE fortitude save spell. Useful, don't step in it, be very careful with this one. But it's extremely powerful, and you can cast one on top of the other for double the effect, by the way. Greater Heroism, that was a free pick. At the same time, we get an Elemental Assessor and Serenity. These are the last 3 spells that you pick for free at level 19. Greater Heroism for obvious reasons. Not only can you buff others, but you're definitely yourself for a +4 to your attacks, +4 to your saves, +4 to skill checks, immunity to fear, and an extra +20 hit points at level 20. And those hit points stack with Vampiric Touch. So again, all kinds of ways for you to have an extra inflated health pool bar, so to speak. Elemental Assessor is probably kind of a, you don't have to have it. I mean, we are kind of getting kind of crazy here with our beams, but I figured, what the hell, I'm getting almost all of them. The only 2 we didn't get was Snowball, and you could convince me to get that instead of Magic Missile. And then the only other one that we're missing is Ray of Sickening, and that's a level 1 spell, and it's a save or suck spell. And it's one of those where I'm like, well, we already have Ray of Enfeeblement. I really don't think I need Ray of Sickening, so I passed on it, and I'm fine with that choice. But this one here actually does have some utility, and again, if you maximize this, if it works like it should, we're talking 12 damage of acid, 12 damage of cold, 12 damage of electricity, 12 damage of fire to a single target, and then from there, just I think randomly picks one of those elements to do for 24 damage for 4 more rounds. That's pretty goddamn funny. So literally just beam some dude and just watch his health just go poof, 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 and just drop like a stone. That's hilarious to me. Serenity, because it's an enchantment, and again, teammate friendly, which you gotta love this. We get a buff to the save because of our 2DC save increases, so that's helpful. And it's one of those where, because it's AoE, even if they make the save, someone's probably gonna fail it. Even if it's one dude, then that's at least something that you did with it. And that's the only real reason that I like this one, and the fact that it's teammate friendly. And it's super fun to watch them hurt themselves when they're trying to hurt me. That's hilarious to me. Acid Fog was kind of a last minute pick. It literally is the one you pick at 20. I wasn't convinced that this was the way to go. You notice that we don't have Dragon Kind 1, so you don't get to turn into any kind of dragon that you want, so I could be convinced on that one. But Acid Fog, remember, at level 20 you have DR10 Acid right now. You just get it for free. So if you maximize this one, the maximum damage it can do every round is 12. To you, it would be 2. So you could stand in it all day long. Now the downside is, there's melee penalties to attacks and damage for you and anyone else in that cloud. So that helps you and hurts you at the same time. You get a bonus to armor class for someone shooting into the cloud. But, and here's the problem, I haven't tested this because I can't yet, because everyone dies too quickly from it. But I don't know that your ray spells would not be nerfed as well in the cloud. Because it's a ranged attack, would you suffer the -8, or basically a +8 to the armor class of the guy you're trying to shoot because of that? Because that would suck. And if that's the case, then I would not pick this one. But again, I haven't tested it. If you guys want to test that on the harder difficulty stuff, feel free to report down below, let us know. So that's the thing. But that's your spells. And again, just to kind of show you a little bit here what we're talking about, I'm not going to fight with the character. Notice a couple other things that I want to just tell you about as we get into it. You have, excuse me, I stuffed up nose here. Notice that we have this Hellfire Ray 3 times a day. A decent, not a huge area of effect, but basically the equivalent of Fireball as far as I'm concerned. A little smaller even. It's not teammate friendly, you can hurt yourself, so be careful with this shit. But it's a nice damaging attack at level 9. It gets even better as you level up. And you get another casting at 17 and a third casting now finally at level 20. So a decent fire AoE effect. Another reason that we could push Fireball back and get Lightning Bolt instead of Fireball. That one's not bad. You'll use that quite a bit. Here's our free Scorching Ray that we get for being that Tiefling that we are. Remember to pull that to your trace somewhere so that's not hidden away. Here it is here versus the actual spell that we get when we picked it, or got it for level 2 for free. I would probably arrange these in a way where I have all my melee touch attacks here and all the ray spells from low to high here. Some buffs on this side. Don't forget, of course, your extend and your maximize magic over here so that you can click one. You don't get to use both. You get one at a time. So if you want a spell that's going to have a duration, use extended. If you want it to do more damage or whatever, use your maximized. Good options. Always leave your wings on. Don't forget to have these in your tray because Arcane Strike will naturally shut itself off. Reactivate it to get that damage bump. That's a +5 to all your swings for your weapons. That's damage you need. Here's your toggles, of course, for +2 to hit, +2 for your spell DC, or +2 for spell pen. Know which does what. Have them probably over here so you can decide at a moment's notice. And it's quick activation. You can pause the game and click to switch to a different one. Perfectly fine. We have, of course, our Piranha Strike. This will cause you to miss more often than not. That's a bummer, but it does more damage, so of course you gotta love that. So make sure, if you're whiffing and you haven't buffed up, buff up first, and if that's not enough, then shut this off. Yes, you'll sacrifice some damage, but at least you'll hit them and do damage. But I don't think you'll have that much of an issue. Prescient attack, as again, you know that before using a ray spell, if you really want to make sure to hit that son of a bitch, it will hit them and hurt them badly. Because they don't get that dex bonus. They'll get like dodge, I think, maybe. But they don't get any dex bonus. Their armor's already in crap because it's a ray spell, so a touch attack spell anyway. And it should almost guarantee that you land, with the exception of the times where you're either A, too low, you've been debuffed, or they've been like super inflated with other stats that you just can't really account for. But that will help a lot. I was almost tempted, because of this, to go for extra arcane pool points, which is a viable option. I didn't do it, but you could, because having more casting of these, I think you get like 4 more every day, maybe 2. But either way, it's definitely helpful and definitely worth using. You still will, of course, buff your weapon. Make sure you have the enduring blade on when you buff. If not, you see you get more castings a day. But I almost always use this version because then, you know, double the number of minutes equal to your caster level, so we can get all the way up to 20-minute buff on your weapon. Other things to point out as far as spells and tricks and such, even if I'm out of everything, I am more inclined to have something like Ray of Frost, Acid Splash, or if I'm fighting undead, obviously Disrupt Undead on autopilot once I get to level 11. Why? Because yes, I'll take a -2 to my swing for my Ray spell, and then a -2 for my swings for my rapier or whatever weapon I'm using. But it's just a random extra damage of an elemental type to their face, more likely to hit because it's a touch attack, and we got bonuses to touch attack thanks to weapon focus and point blank shot. And remember, once we get to 11, we will be point blank master ray, so it doesn't provoke an attack of opportunity. So I can shoot those all day long and then stab you with my rapier. And you don't get to be like, oh, he's casting a spell, poke him in the face. Sorry, no, you do not get to do that because it's a ray spell. And that's beautiful. So again, feel free to leave stuff like that on autopilot when you get low on spells, because you have infinite uses of those in a day. Again, I go to Acid just on default, but Ray of Frost is just as decent. And again, Undead is better if you're fighting Undead. Disrupt Undead's your go-to. But sadly, Flare is not considered a Ray spell. So that's a bummer. But those three, though, are your bread and butter, really. As much as people will be like, oh, no, you're really touch of fatigue. You're really not. These three, once you get to 11, are kind of the ones you want to leave on autopilot. From there, don't forget to buff up. You don't have to use all the buffs, so don't have to get crazy here. But, you know, my go-to, like if I were to... Well, here, let's just do it. If I were to go into the cave, or wherever I'm going to fight, whether I'm solo or with a team, figure I'm always going to have a light spell on me so I remember where my character is, because in a team it's confusing, and I like to be able to see shit. So there you go for that. Then from there, without extended metamagic, I'm just using these. Now, shield spell, it's a nice buff. We could do protection from good, but it's unlikely to be used, so we're going to do expeditious retreat, because I'm zippy now, and then I will actually shrink myself down with reduced person. Takes a second. It's a full casting for this guy, but well worth it. Now, just for those 3 buffs, A, I'm faster, and my armor jumped up considerably. I got +4 thanks to shield. I got another 2 more for 1 for size, and another 1 thanks to my highly increased dexterity. And that dexterity can be increased further with Cat's Grace. Anything that buffs dexterity that's not size related will increase this further because they will stack. So that's a nice bump right there for dex as well as armor. Notice my attack bonus has gone up as well thanks to the higher dex and the size, because it's easier for me to hit bigger targets. So again, a +2 to swing, a +2 to that. I even get more damage because remember we got Piranha Strike. So that, or I take that back. No, we don't get a +2 damage because of Piranha Strike. I mean, we do, but not because of this. Piranha Strike is always the same. I'm thinking of Slashing Grace or Fencing Grace. Sorry, we did not pick that feat. If you want to pick that feat, you can, but I think you have to have weapon focus and something to do it. Like, obviously not a ray spell. Obviously we're talking like a rapier, kukri, something like that. I did not pick that. If you wanted to go that route, you probably could delete a couple things like dodge and maybe like greater spell focus, evocate, or enchantment. But again, I'm kind of happy with the way it is. It would add to your damage considerably, even for that matter. But again, we're really not honestly relying on your rapier to do all your damage anymore. Now we're relying on these awesome ass ray spells to shoot them in the face at point blank range. And that's why I say that I'm not particularly worried. Notice again we have 2 different types of ray spells at this level. One ray spell here, very late in the game, but it's definitely there, and it's really good damage, and it's force damage, and it's guaranteed damage so long as they're not spell resistant and you don't miss. Because the reflex save, again, doesn't do shit for lowering the damage. It has to do with whether they're knocked down or not. So even on a rogue type, as long as you can hit the little son of a bitch, thank you, prescient attack, boom, 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 you hit him 4 goddamn times, and it hurts like a son of a bitch. So a really, really nice buff. A really nice amount of damage. You have, of course, haste versus slow, so of course ways to buff you and ways to debuff them. Extra health with the vampiric touch, don't forget about that. Of course, your poison spells like Stinking Cloud, and of course Cloud Kill will be amazing. Hold Person for when you really just want to lock down one guy. All kinds of other stuff that we got for damage, debuffs like crazy. Make sure you understand which debuffs work all the time. And for instance, like Innervation has no saving throw associated with it. Really nice then for single target debuffing. Yeah, I mean, really everything from there you already know what to do. Of course, again, last minute ditch effort, transformation spell. You know, greater heroism is amazing. You really will have fun with this. As far as skills are concerned, everyone's different, but you don't have many, and even with 12 intelligence, you don't get many. I did always make sure to maximize perception. I put 1 in everything with the exception of stealth, because who cares? You're not really stealthy. Go invisible if you really want to do that. But it's not your bread and butter, and we're not doing sneak attack damage, so I didn't care. But having said that, you do have greater invis at least. We do have some skill in Arcana / World, up to you which one you really want to invest in. I invested most into Arcana, because it made sense to me. But having said that, we didn't invest much. I put a little bit in athletics, a little bit in mobility, and a little bit in trickery, like 1 in each, just to have them there. Put a decent number in use magic device, because your charisma is kind of suck, and sometimes you are going to want to use wands or potion or scrolls, excuse me, and you may not be able to cast them at a moment's notice. So without some use magic device to back that up, I figured what the hell. But perception was my key, and even persuasion got some loving, but not much. Because again, this isn't a persuasion build as far as like dazzling display and scaring people and intimidating people. We don't do that. We use spells. Spells for damage, spells for debuffing, and spells. We just use spells. Spells, 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 all day long spells. So persuasion wasn't particularly necessary. I pumped it because, again, you are reasonably the face of the team. Maybe not all the time, but at least it helps for some checks. But always perception. And again, you can shuffle this any way you feel makes sense. Perception and trickery and some mobility and athletics. So you can get, when you solo, you can get all those checks in for free and get to level 8 by the end of chapter 1. You can totally do that. I think what I have here is fine with me, and I'm probably going to take the team with me most times. And even if I don't, I'll probably take at least one sneak thief bastard with me, like Lindsay, to do the trickery checks for me, or the mobility checks that I can't do. And that's fun. So between me and her, she'll level up fast, I'll level up fast, and we'll be ahead of everybody else, and I'm fine with that. After that, I'll probably take Octavia instead, because she'll help for some damage too. But by and large, you will have fun playing this build. I think that this is actually a pretty solid build. It's not amazing, but I think this would be something that would be worth playing. It would definitely be fun. But with that, my name is Brothermutant. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see you guys soon. Bye now.